welcome back to another update on the Carrier Challenge. Now, we've kind of got a little bit of a delay here. We're less than a week from our departure for Joe Nall, and we have a lot left to do. The weather has been a bit uncooperative, etc. We've got all of our parts and bits, I think, more or less sorted pretty now, much, and we're ready to get going. Stuart, where did we last see you?
Well, for myself, we had tested initially my landing and takeoff with both the Trojan and the Skymule. I think we settled on using both because we can, and why not?
Indeed.
So right now, I'm about to kick off with my modifying. I've got some various bits and pieces that I want to try on this. Essentially, yes, they're very bling, very nice. Essentially, it's about reinforcing both birds so they can take those hard landings. That's, of course, assuming that I will land on the deck. If I land on the water, it'll be quite soft. But hopefully it won't come to that.
He thinks that.
Yeah. So a little later on in this video, you'll see what I do in terms of modifying both these birds to make them carrier worthy. Matt, where are you now?
Well, you guys went with me on our lovely journey to Lowe's to pick up a whole lot of green foam. I got a lot of funny looks for carrying this thing around. And basically that was about it. I took the sheets home to my apartment. I did lay them out on the driveway, and I was able to determine that there was no way that I was going to be able to build this thing and transport it in any modular form down to Joe Nall.
It's a lot of fun.
And keep it strong enough for Stuart's landing antics. So I have decided that the actual construction will take place at Joe Nall itself. I think I can build the thing in just a couple of days as far as getting it all physically glued together. But in order to make that possible, I've got all of my bits here, and I'm going to pre-design and pre-sort of test all of those systems. I'm going to make sure the motors and the ESCs work. I've got servos here so that I can build the arrestor system for launch, as well as the net to catch Stuart's wayward aircraft. And I have a number of bits and pieces here that I've never used before in my life for mounting boat drivetrains, so I have a bit of work to do ahead of me figuring that out. The other sort of interesting thing that I happened into over the weekend, I took home a little robotics experimentation kit because I'm a nerd and I do that sort of thing. And in particular, I wanted to try out this, which is the YRC Denzian RC system. This lets you drive RC stuff with live video from a tablet. Very, very cool.
Showed me, he was very impressed.
Very cool, very into it, and I actually have discovered that it makes things like skid steer and other sort of really weird setups for RC a whole lot easier to pull off. So assuming that the range works, which I'll be testing here in the next day or two with the little robot, then I'm actually going to drive the Carrier using this, which also allows me to flip a camera around 180 degrees and call the ball for Stuart when he's on landings. So
that would be very helpful.
Helpful and kind of interesting, and you know, more loud.
Well, we discovered this down at the field because I found that I was most comfortable standing an angle from the Carrier, and I want to do this both line of sight and FPV, so any device like that would be a great help. So I think. By
the way, a lot of you guys have pointed out that, you know, the real Carriers have a hull, etc., etc. I do get all that. I understand that.
Scale police, go home.
Yeah, scale police, please, guys. You know, one of these days I'll build a boat for you, I promise. But right now, all I'm making is a giant floating platform that the planes can come on and off of. It'll have some homage to Carrier-ness on it. It's gonna look kind of cool. If it works and moves under its own power, I'll be very impressed. The other thing is, I'm going to not be working against Stuart on this. I'm going to be working with Stuart. The goal here is to actually succeed in landing an aircraft on the Carrier. So I will be sort of aiming and pointing the Carrier in such a way to make his perspective as easy as possible. Once we succeed and he's pulled this off, and we can check a successful challenge off.
We do want to do that.
Yeah. We want to do that. We don't want to fail.
But
every time. After that, all bets are off. I'm spinning this sucker in the water, and we're going to see what happens if we can put more planes on it.
And at that point, that's when we're going to throw it over to you guys.
Yeah, we're going to involve you guys somehow. We're not
we know how we kind of want to.
Kind of know what we want to do.
You'll see. You'll see.
Yeah, good stuff coming there. So.
All right, so we best get on with this because
we had best get on with it. Time's ticking. So, yeah, we're going to get to it, and see you guys later.
All right, bye. Okay, we're back, and what I'm going to do now is just quickly talk you through the mods that I made on both the Skymule and the Trojan to enable them to better handle the punishment I will put them through when I try this stupid thing of landing a plane on a piece of foam in the middle of the water. So, Skymule. First of all, if I turn it over, the first thing you'll notice is the most obvious. Is this strapping across the bottom. Now, with all the sideward force and all the jerking around on the undercarriage, when I come to land and take off from the deck, I wanted to really stabilize the rig. So I put this strap across the bottom and done some soldering here to attach this strap to the main undercarriage. What this has done is really stiffened up the undercarriage now, which is great. So any side load is completely negated and taken out, which is great. Now it doesn't look very attractive, true. If I had more time, maybe I could have run a strap up from the bottom here right up to the center section of the wing. I could have done that if I had time, and perhaps I would on another model. And if you want to do this, perhaps that's something you could do as well. But for me, I'm looking for function over form, and it actually functions very, very well. Next part, I got some very good glass fiber tape, cross weaved as you can see, and reinforced the entire bottom of the wing here. So what that does, again, it just gives it additional reinforcement, also negates some of the torsional forces that would have been loading up on this wing. This whole center section now is dead rigid, which is great. The other thing which I really like, and I know Matt over there likes too, I have an oleo now. Let me demonstrate. That's an oleo, and that looks really cool on the Sky Mule. Very, very pleased with that. I'm sure that will take some force out of the landing, because when obviously I slam down, that's going to reduce the risk of breaking the nose or tipping over or whatever. Also, what this has with I think the American term is a dually, 2 wheels, instead of 1, that means I've got a more stable platform on which to turn, so I'm not going to be tipping over when I taxi, which is great. As you can see, I'll open up the lid here. What I've actually done, you've got a black line here. What that black line indicates is the edge of the plastic that's installed in the nose from the factory. Now what I've done, I've cut out some foam and I've installed some 3mm ply and then lather that up with plenty of epoxy, as you can see there, just to help really reinforce the plate and the mounting of the axle for the nozzle. That's all very good. It seems to work very well so far. Obviously we'll see what it's like when we go out and test it. And the other most obvious thing that you can see is that I've stripped it off. The decals did come off relatively easily with some tape, as I said. It took a little bit of time, but it was worth it. This Sky Mule is looking a little worse for it at the moment, but that kind of gives it a sense of endearment for me. It's a real workhorse, and when I put it to work on the carrier, I think you'll see this thing really, really shine. So with the Sky Mule naked as it is now, I'm actually gonna do it up in the same navy color scheme as the Trojan. So I've got some decals here. I'm gonna paint this up and we'll see how that looks. Now for the Trojan, the plane that was supposedly invented for carrier landings and takeoff. This one, it's very simple on this one. All I've actually done is just fitted oleos to the main. Other than that, I was very pleased with the way it performed. Its sink rate was nice with the flaps as well, that really helped. I have taken the gear doors off. I don't want the added complication of those. And I fitted these main oleos here. Let me show you those in action. There we go. So these oleos are actually what we sell, or we call them Spitfire 1100mm oleos. So in theory, they will fit any 1100mm style warbird, and they do. I had to do a little bit of modifying, grinding, lots of sparks, lots of fun, but it did the job. These are now installed and installed well, and as you can see, that nice springing motion there should hopefully help with all the forces that I'm going to be put on this. The nose wheel retractor stayed the same. I've not put an oleo on that, but what I have done is put a bigger wheel on the front and smaller wheels on the back. So what I've physically done, if I turn this around, before, as standard, the Trojan had a ever so slight, well, quite a pronounced actually, nose down attitude. I think that was probably what was causing the long takeoff runs, and now I've raised the angle of attack by having a bigger wheel on the front and 2 smaller wheels on the mains, and that should help me lift off in a shorter length of runway, which is great. So they are the mods on the models. I'm of course going to try this line of sight and FPV, see how that goes. As you can see, there's the FPV camera mounted in the nose of the Sky Mule, and if I try FPV with the Trojan, I think I might be inclined to put a pan and tilt just up here, so I'm almost in the pilot's seat, as it were. What it's going to be like through the propeller arc, I don't know, we'll find out. So that's about it on these two. I just need to get the Sky Mule painted up and looking pretty, and a few more tweaks. Before that, we're going to go out and fly it, but right now Matt's got an update on his carrier. Quick.
The guy Stuart has been working hard at work reinforcing his aircraft for carrier landings. Why? Because of this. This is in fact an aircraft carrier. It's a very small version of what will eventually be happening, but I wanted to lay out all of the parts so that I was sure I had everything I needed, and so I'd have some understanding of the layout of this thing as I start building it at Joe Nall. That's gonna have to happen pretty fast. So from front to back, as you can see on this thing, is a servo at the rear. That's gonna be to actuate the plane holding device for takeoff. Got 4 motors right here, slightly staggered. Those will be running skid steer style so that you can steer the craft without a rudder using just the force from the motors. 4 speed controls. Now, I've been getting a lot of crap from the guys that perhaps this is a bit undersized. These are 40 amp car speed controllers and very basic motors. However, each of these is going to be on 2S. It's 140 amps total across the total carrier. I think it's going to be fine. I'm not asking this thing to go fast, just to move. I could be wrong. There could be some magic smoke. We'll wait and see. On the front of the carrier here is another pair of servos. These guys are going to actuate that arrestor net for capturing the aircraft at the end of a run or stopping a landing. And as I mentioned before, I did manage to get my little robo guy working. We're going to check that out in just a minute and do a little bit of range testing. But that's really, really cool. I am able to drive the thing with a live camera using a tablet. So I think I'm going to try that on the carrier. That's this Denzian module here with a Wi-Fi dongle for connection and a camera so we can see where the carrier is going. If I have time, I'm going to mount this camera on a servo as well so it can be pivoted back so we can watch the shenanigans as Stuart comes in to land. So the real challenge for me is going to be getting this all together in time at Joe Nall. This is the layout that I'm going to use. It's going to be a lot of servo extensions and glue. Other than that, what you see is pretty much what you get. The bigger challenge in the short term right now is to continue on with testing the deck itself. So we're gonna head out right now and mock up that thing on the ground and do some flights off of the deck, possibly with some silly net shenanigans, so check it out. Totally easier than I thought it was. I guess that is as silly as it looks.
So this is on the foam surface for the first time. There will be grip tape on it, and Matt's not holding a victory flag. That is in fact the net. Flag. I haven't got the mechanism working yet, but he's going to run as soon as I take off, if I take off, stick that in the ground, and then it will catch me, just like magic.
So my guess here, net over the shoulder, is that he's off before that second line on the carrier.
Wow.
That's what a carrier landing's supposed to look like. That was perfect.
This is water.
Yeah.
It's going to be attached to the bottom eyes. I should imply that. The bottom of the net will be attached to the front of the deck, so what just happened there can't actually happen, but otherwise, that totally worked. Oh.
So I needed obviously some more practice with the Trojan. Don't want to keep breaking that, the sun is setting. I want to quickly try the Sky Mule, see where we get to. Matt, thank you for your deck. As we saw, that helped a lot. I was off before the end of the deck.
Yeah, first takeoff, I said before that line, and then it was off.
That's true, on a fresh pack, that worked out very well.
That worked out real well.
The net seems to work. I think the pilot's at fault right now, so let's try the Sky Mule. I'll try FPV and line of sight as well.
You're good.
Nice.
Okay, so my nose will need a little strengthening.
A little extra help.
It's a bit like butter. But it worked.
It works.
Let's give it an FPV. The nose has broken. And the neck, yes, is the best feature. Thank you.
it, you nailed it.
Wow, that's so easy.
I told you.
Screw this line of sight flying.
Every time.
Why
you
haven't
put
you
a quarter
fly
on the
anything
deck,
every
dude, you were
day?
down the center line into the net, like, perfect.
All right, so.
How many GoPros can we point at you at the same time?
I talked through the modifications. This is just a temporary fix to the camera, hence why it's now panned that way, that's fine. I used a piece of gauge wire here that obviously wasn't strong enough, but I prefer that takes the knock than the actual mounting plate itself, which you see in there. So that's staying nice and tight. Brilliant. That's working perfectly well. I'm gonna sort out my FPV mounting, get that nicely secured in there. I'm gonna have lots of these landing gear shafts on hand, and I think we should be fine. That worked. I can't believe
I told you it was gonna work.
Very good.
That was brilliant, actually.